be a part of our presentation. My name is Heather Sloan. I'm the director of our Post-Adoption Connection Center, which is our post-adoption services to families after kiddos come into their home. So part of what I'm trying to start up is doing this series on difficult behaviors and trying to address different common things that I think a lot of parents, all parents encounter. And then for you as foster or adoptive parents, get that kind of added complication on top of a lot of things that are, pretty typical for children, but are made a lot more difficult to handle because of your child's history. So we're picking up with that and planning to do that every other month going into the future. So please watch for future invitations to join us for other webinars. So today we'll be talking about handling control battles, which is a challenge. So especially if you are in the thick of it with kids right now, I hear you and see you. And hopefully today you get some strategies for ways to handle it and approach what your child's bringing to you. So our objectives today are focusing on why children are going to pick control battles, particularly our adopted ones, and then what parents can do to address it, try to give you some really practical tips and strategies. And at the end, I'm going to specifically focus on food, sleep, and toilet issues, because that is an area where we will commonly see control battles and control really come out of our children, and we'll talk about why that might be. Okay, so why do control battles happen? If you hear me say nothing else today, right? If one takeaway is this statement right here: we seek to control when we feel out of control. Okay, so this is where it's coming from. If we are in a healthy, normal state and are not feeling controlled, or we're not feeling out of control, then we aren't going to seek to take over something. It is only when we feel out of control. So especially when children have come to your home with difficult histories, especially if they're newer into your home, right? And everything has just been kind of pulled out from underneath them. That is an incredibly out of control state to be in. So they are going to seek to grasp for any kind of control wherever they can. This is a struggle that everybody has, right? And this is a normal human thing, especially at certain developmental stages. You're especially going to see this with toddlers and teenagers. So if you have adopted a child that is in that age range, or they are currently in that age range, and you're really encountering this, and a lot of that has to do with their developmental state and where they currently are. These are some of the biggest stages where children are exerting independence from their parents. Okay, so in toddlerhood, right, they're finally starting to have some words, have some control over their own bodies, learning how to do new things, and starting to kind of take a step away from parents doing everything for them that they did when they were a baby. And then teenagers, right, they're starting in adolescence, moving toward adulthood, a natural phase where kids start to walk a little bit away from parents and want to take over more of their lives, right? They think they're adults, but they aren't adults yet. And so it's a challenge to kind of parent in that stage, especially with our kids that are adopted. You might still see some of these control battles really lasting into the elementary school ages as a pretty significant struggle if the child didn't really struggled with this as a toddler, never really worked through this stage well as a toddler because of their trauma, because of their history, who their caregivers were. But we're going to see it across all ages and into adulthood, right? But some of the places where you might really be coming up against this could be in that toddler or teenage age range. So what might control look like? It can look like ordering others around, ordering you as the parent, ordering their other siblings around, especially if you adopted a sibling set or fostering a sibling set, then you can see them kind of like ordering around their siblings, especially if they're the oldest one, or even just in that sibling set, because those are ones that are easier to order around because they're closer to them, right, as the biological siblings. This can look like general bossiness and rudeness. Just kind of getting that attitude back from them, that bossiness coming out. They look like defiance. Everything you say is always met with a no, an instant no from them. They could be physically kind of using their body and to control. So this could be blocking entrances, exits, staircases. I know I'm really going through this with my toddler right now, that he wants to be, if we're upstairs and I say it's time to go downstairs and he does not want to, he puts his body right there at that staircase, trying to keep me from all of us going downstairs. So that can be a big struggle. Just a general rejection of the house rules, especially if they're rules that kind of make sense and are easy to follow, but your child is still kind of bucking against them and rejecting that. Rearranging items in the home, moving things to where they want them to be, kind of as a way to control that. So it may not even look like something that's an obvious control of like, no, I want this here. But if they're moving things around and constantly putting them back in other places, that can be kind of a subtle way to exert control, right? This blanket is going to go over here on this other couch or on the chair or on the floor. I'm just going to put it down there. I'm going to throw it on the floor. Taking up space, kind of similar to the blocking entrances, using their bodies. I'm going to take over the whole couch. This chair is mine. Taking over somebody else's chair in the car at the table where maybe another child typically sits, right? Especially if it's especially in the car at the dinner table, we have our spot, right? Where we always go. So them taking over somebody else's spot. And then the food, sleep, and toilet issues, which we'll go into a little bit more detail here at the end. So reasons why a child is going to seek to control. So especially our adopted kids or our fostered kids. They might feel out of control, right? As we kind of said earlier with that mantra, we seek to control when we feel out of control. So it's going to cause our kids to kind of obsessively control their environment because in their earlier years, their earlier history, they felt out of control in other areas. They fear vulnerability. So that as a way to combat against that, they're going to take over control. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but oftentimes this can be in a way that has absolutely nothing to do with where they're taking control, right? They might feel out of control emotionally, or they might feel out of control with something that's going on at school. Maybe there's been a big transition. They've moved from elementary to middle to high school. Something big has taken place, but you're seeing them exert control in other areas at home that really have nothing to do with where they might feel out of control. But that just might be the place where they're able to grasp for control when they can't control switching schools, right? They can't go back to middle school. They can't go back to elementary, their old teacher, their old classes, whatever, their old sports team. They cannot control that. And so they're going to look for other places in their life where they can try to feel some control. So it can look really unrelated, which makes it hard for you as a parent to try to navigate through that. They're acting out of fear, insecurity, and anxiety. If they are feeling out of control, grasping for anything, whatever it is that can help them feel secure again, help them feel safe. A good question or a series of questions for you to start asking yourself, especially if you're seeing a lot of control issues with your child. What are they afraid of? What are they insecure about, or what are they anxious about? Staying curious about what is behind that behavior. Why are they taking control over something that doesn't matter, right? If you find yourself saying that, like, why are they even doing this? It's like, doesn't make sense. You're right. It doesn't make sense in the behavior. What's going on emotionally? What's going on in their emotions, in their mind that's causing that behavior to come out? So staying curious with that question. What are they afraid of? What are they insecure about? What are they anxious about? Children will control if they don't have a voice. So as infants, what happens, right, is infants have a need. They become upset. They need something. They can't meet their needs, right? So they cry. The parent interprets that cry, meets that need. They feed them. They change their diaper. They put them to sleep. They comfort them, give them something to do, to take them out of boredom. And then the child's need is met and they cycle back around to peace and stability. And then they have another need, they start crying. And when that cycle continues to get met in a healthy way, children learn that when I have a need, I just have to voice it. And then this loving person, my caregiver, my parent, is going to meet that need and everything will be good again. And then I have another need, they'll meet it and it'll be good again. But with your kids, right, they didn't likely have somebody doing that cycle in a healthy way with them. So learning at a very young age that when I have a need, it doesn't matter if I voice it, nobody's going to help me. I have to take care of myself. I have to take control. So they use their behavior right? They get controlling, they can use manipulative behaviors. Lots of different things can come out there because they don't have a voice to be able to actually share what they need and trust that that's going to be responded to. The children could be reacting emotionally, right? They're not thinking and acting logically in this state when they are grasping for control, especially if maybe it starts in a more logical place, but then they get pushback or they get a reaction they didn't want or didn't expect. They're not getting what they want, then they start to dig their heels in and then it stops being logical, right? And at that point, they're just digging their heels in to keep digging their heels in. So they're reacting emotionally. They're coming out of that brain stem. That logical brain has come offline and they are purely in fight, flight, or freeze, fighting for them to feel secure, to feel safe, to lessen their anxiety. So your job there is to look for ways that you can disarm that fear, to de-escalate, and to try to take them out of that control battle, which is what we'll get more into today. Your child could be acting out in control because of fear of rejection. So they cannot control whether you love them or you reject them or you accept them, right? They can't control that reaction. So instead, they're going to use their behavior to make you reject their behavior and not them. So that's a self kind of emotional survival skill, right? If I'm behaving badly, then I can rationalize in my brain that this person doesn't want to be close to me because they just don't like how I'm behaving and I have control over that. But it's not because they just don't like me or they don't want to be around me, right? So that fear is coming up in them and using that behavior to push you away and to give you something to reject that isn't who they truly are. They may be able to they may be unable to manage transitions well, especially rapid transitions. So this can be in small things like, hey, buddy, it's time to stop playing so that we can have dinner, so that we can go to bed, so that we can leave for church, doing whatever we're going to go do. We got to leave the park now. Or that can be big transitions, right? So changing schools, classes, sports teams, friendships, moving, changes in the family unit. So any of those kind of life transitions can also come into play here. So that's going to make a child, especially if their history is feeling out of control, right? Where they've lost biological family, they've lost potentially the country. If you've adopted internationally, they've lost everything they've ever known. And that was completely out of their control. They are in your home because they were taken or they were moved or they were, what the reasons that brought them to be fostered or adopted is completely out of their control. And so they're going to start grasping for anything to help them regain some control, especially if they're still newer and newish in your home. So their control battles can reward them, the child, with a reaction from you, right? So we hear that sometimes that kids will kind of be attention seeking, and even if they're getting negative attention back, it's still attention, right? They're still getting you to pay attention to them. And so that control battle can maybe be a way to get that interaction from you. It is unhealthy. It's not the right way to go about it, but they might lack the skills to know how to interact with you in a healthy way that feels safe to them, right? It feels even emotionally safe to them. If I interact with this parent in a healthy way, they could still reject me because I've been rejected in the past. So I'm going to instead interact with them in a way that I can control, which is entering into that control battle. You might have a child in your home that has been parentified. So this is usually going to be when you've got an older child of a sibling group, and that might be even like the second oldest or something too, where they are used to taking care of their younger siblings and watching out for them. Even if those younger siblings are not in your home, maybe just one of those kids is in your home, but they had those younger siblings before, and now you have other children in your home that they're trying to step into a parent role. So this is a kid that has been forced into becoming a parent because of losing biological parents and not having stable parents and caregivers in their lives, and they've had to be the parents to their younger siblings. And breaking that habit is going to be really tough, and is going to be a place where some control battles will start to come out because they are used to controlling their siblings. And now it's your job to do that, right? You're the boss, you're the authority, you're the parent, but letting that go and allowing you to take over that role takes time. They have to trust that you can take care of their siblings as good or better than they can. And that takes a long time to get them to let go of that. Block trust is when they feel unable to rely on the adult that's in charge, right? That they don't trust you either because that trust hasn't really been earned and built yet, or they are just distrusting with anyone. Something has happened to hurt that trust building. And even if there's just been difficulties in the home and it's kind of been eroding a little bit down at that trust that you've been building. If they are not going to trust you to take care of themselves, to handle the situations, and they're going to keep control of that and fight against you to keep control of that. Okay, so what can parents do? First, we are going to start talking about what you can do within yourself. Okay, so this is not the funnest slide. It's not the most fun slide I have in this presentation because I'm going to challenge you to take an honest look at yourself and an honest look maybe at your spouse. And think about where this is rubbing against you and what control it is bringing up in you. Okay, so you see first that statement, we seek to control when we feel out of control. When I said that the first time, we were talking about the child, right? When your child feels out of control, they seek to control. Now I'm going to take this statement and ask you to apply it to yourself and to realize that when you feel out of control with the child in your home, where is your need to control coming up? Right, so where are you kind of overcompensating for that feeling of out of control, and it's causing you to grab control from your child? And in some ways that could be appropriate, right? You're the adult, you're the authority, you're the boss. But in other ways, it might be inappropriate. Okay, so I challenge you to think about when you're getting into these control battles with your child and you're feeling this tug of war, you're entering into this, right? You have the option to step away. But you're engaging in that fight equally with your child. So what are you afraid of? What are you insecure about with what's going on with your child and their behavior in that moment where you're entering into this? What do you feel anxious about? Are you afraid that if they keep doing the thing they're doing, then they're always going to do it? And then they're going to be an adult that does this negative behavior, or they're going to be ostracized by the kids at school because they're doing this thing that's not appropriate in front of all their peers. And so I have to stop them from doing this. I'm afraid of what could happen to them. I'm anxious about that. I'm out in public and my child is acting a way that I'm trying to get them to stop because it's bringing embarrassment onto us. I feel insecure as a parent. I feel anxious about what's happening right now. And so how is that influencing your behavior back to your child that is potentially making the situation worse? Okay. So just challenging you to think about self-awareness. I struggle with control. I come from two parents that struggle with control. And so I have felt that, and I have brought that into my adulthood. I've taken many years in therapy to work through a lot of those control issues, and I still continue to work through it as I've become a parent. So being self-aware, is control something you already struggle with? Do you like to be in control? Do you hate not being in control? If that's kind of already a natural thing inside you, then of course your child entering into control battles is going to trigger that in you and push that button inside you. You can say that and admit that to yourself with honesty and with compassion. Okay, this is normal, right? Everybody is going to seek control when they feel out of control. That's a natural response, right? We all want to be in control. Now, some people, like me included, really, really want to be in control, really want to be on that side of it. So I need to just admit that with myself with honesty, and then have compassion on myself and work through what it looks like to let go of control. And some of these questions here on the right side of your screen might help you do that. So what can you control? Right? What in this situation with your child can you actually control? Typically, that's only stuff within inside yourself, right? And things that you can do. And what can you not control? Typically, that's going to be anything your child is doing, right? You can't make them act a certain way. You can't make them do certain things. Yes, you can. There are things that we can do to compel children to do things, right? But there is a line there, right, of what I can control and what I cannot control. And then that last question, what should you control and what should you not control, right? So even if you could control, even if you could use some force, use some compelling to get your child to do something, is that what you should be doing? Okay. So in all of this today, I am not encouraging you to be a permissive parent that just lets your child do whatever they want and there's nothing you can do about it, right? That is absolutely not what we're talking about today. We hold boundaries. There are consequences when boundaries are crossed, but we also want to make sure that we're replacing those boundary lines are in places that make sense and work, right? That boundary line is not fully in a place where really, truly only your child has control over that, okay? So a quick example that we'll get into later is like food, right? You have absolute zero control over what your child puts into their mouth, okay? Even if you forced food inside their mouth, right? And even if it somehow got to their stomach, they could then throw it up, right? I worked with a family that the child that was doing that. The parents were so overwhelmed and fearful about what the child wasn't eating and how picky they were being, that they were actually forcing her to eat stuff, kind of putting stuff in her mouth, making her chew it, which is just, that was a whole other level of not appropriate, right? And not good. But then the child would just look at them and turn over the side of her chair and throw up onto the floor. So that's an example, right? A simple example of where you can place a boundary line, right? Your boundary line is I can provide all the food and I can encourage you to eat it, but that's where that line stops. And then my child takes over. And the consequences there, right, are that if they don't need any food, then they feel hungry, or they have to go make their own food, or they have to, assemble different, we'll talk about it a little bit more in a little. Those lines between what you can control, what you cannot control, and what you should or should not control. All right. Okay, so jumping into a few more strategies here. Okay, so control your reactions, right? This is something that you have control over. So you're entering into a control battle with your child. They are pushing back about something. They're saying no to something. They're trying to take over spaces, not letting you go down the stairs, right? So watching your reactions, that perhaps you need to underreact to what they're doing, right? That they, especially if they're a child that's doing it to look for an emotional reaction, to try to get rewarded with that reaction from you, to just try to like, no, I'm gonna fight this battle with my parent today. I feel out of control, so I'm just gonna fight this battle. That maybe your reaction needs to be to underreact. That if they're looking for this, no, that's not what you need to do, and they're expecting you to engage into that control battle with them, maybe your reaction needs to be, wow, okay, all right, that's a choice you're making. Okay, and kind of depending on what the situation is, how can you maybe underreact? Staying really calm, staying consistent in your responses to them. Can be a way to also kind of discern them, right? If you're not responding with the battle they expect you to respond with, that can kind of get them off balance a little bit and maybe take them away from trying to fight for that control in that moment. Try not to take it personally. Remember that often this is not a direct challenge to you as a parent, but this child is fighting for themselves, right? They feel out of control. They feel fearful. They feel fearful. They feel anxious. They feel insecure. And so they are fighting for security and for peace. And that is not about you. Okay, that is about them and what's going on in their feelings. So to try to not take it personal. So if you find yourself just feeling like, gosh, all this kid wants to do is fight me. No, they don't want to fight you. Right? They might be fighting authority. They might be fighting not getting to do whatever they want to do, right? But again, that's about them. It's not just about you as a parent. You're not failing as a parent. They're not rejecting you as mom or dad. They are just coming up against their own fears and their anxieties. So remember that your job is to parent them, not control them, right? So parenting means guiding, it means teaching, it means supporting, encouraging, redirecting them, correcting the behavior, right? We're still keeping boundaries and consequences in place, but that's your job as a parent, right? And controlling them is not on that list of what it means to be a parent. Your job is to diffuse, look for any ways that you can kind of get out of this. I kind of say often to myself when I'm getting into control battles with my children, that once you've entered the control battle, you've already lost as the parent, because your child can outlast you. They will outlast you. I had a family one time that they were taking up the food battle, and this child had some food in their mouth, and the parent was watching them just kind of roll the food around in their mouth. and they were just not swallowing it, not chewing it. If I remember, this was a number of years ago, if I remember this correctly, I mean, they told me they sat at that table with the child for 3 hours. And it was like, you can't leave this table until you swallow that food. And the child said, challenge accepted. Okay. At the end of that time, the parent lost it and walked away from the table, and the kid won, right? Because the parent could not make them actually swallow the food. So they picked a hill to die on, and they died on it. The parent did. So your job in that moment is to diffuse those situations. And if that's the battle your child's trying to pick up, then you say, all right, buddy, you can swallow it or not. It's up to you, and walk away from the table. And they can do it or not. They can spit it out. If you're going to spit it out, you need to put it in the garbage. Put some boundaries around where they can do that. But looking for ways that you can step right out of that battle that child's trying to bring your way. Recognize, this kind of goes back a little bit to the slide before, but recognize when you have started to label your child as a controller or label them as a manipulator. That can be a good indication to you that you are taking up just the challenge and just the battle that your child's bringing you, and missing a little bit about what's behind that. Okay. Your child is acting in a controlling way. They are seeking to act and to take over control. They are using manipulation, right, to get what they need or want in a situation. But when you started to label them that way, that's a good thing to pay attention to, and to start to recognize, okay, how do I step out of the challenges and the difficulties that this child is throwing in my face, and still see them as the child that had this history, that is bringing that history and that baggage into my home, and that's why they are acting in these ways. And how can we get back to understanding what the fear and the anxiety and the insecurity is behind what's going on in their behavior. Okay, we want to share control whenever you can. Okay, so if you are familiar with TBRA, we talk a lot about offering choices and offering compromises. Okay, so this is a great way to share control with a child. If you are especially seeing some issues in a lot of certain areas, and you know this is going to be a battle, how can you make it a choice, right? So the choices you offer are choices that you are completely okay with them choosing one of those choices or the other. Don't offer a good choice and a bad choice and hope they pick the good one. They will choose the bad one. Offer them 2 good choices. And say, hey, you can do this or this, you can eat this or this, we can go and do this or this next activity. You need to get ready for bed. Do you want to do this first, or do you want to do this first? And then allow them to choose, right? So then they feel like they're in control. They got to pick what they're doing. They got to pick what they're eating. That was all them, when really you're the one that's offering those choices. And if your child says, no, I don't want to do either of those things, that's where the compromise can come in. Okay, well, those are the choices I've offered you. Do you have a different idea? Do you have a different compromise? Is there something else you'd want to eat? Something else you want to do? Somewhere else you want to go? What's your compromise? You can offer that to me. I might say yes, I might say no. It depends on what it is, right? So if they offer a compromise that's acceptable to you, take a minute, think about it. Is it acceptable, right? And can you go ahead and give into that compromise, right? Compromise means they give a little and you might be giving a little too, right? So even if the compromise isn't 100% of what you really wanted, if it's a good meet in the middle, then go ahead and take it, right? Because then they feel like they've maintained some control. You've avoided that battle, and you're probably still moving along with the train on the tracks. If they offer a compromise that is completely unacceptable, you can say no to that and explain to them why that's not an acceptable choice. And then maybe you offer your own compromise, or you go back to the original 2 choices. Ooh, buddy, that compromise isn't going to work because blah, blah, blah. You got to go back to these 2. Which one do you want to do? Can you choose which one you want to do? And really put that focus on that. Is a great way to share control, and that can be very preventative. So that next point on there, being proactive to prevent control battles. Try to see if there's a theme, right, in the control. If they're acting out control in places that are completely unrelated, because it's something else over here, it might be hard to find a theme. But I think if you take some time to really journal out, hey, this is where we got into control battles. This is what it was about. This is what they wanted. This is what I said. And really take, like a week's worth, take a step back and look at it. You might really start to see a theme. Is it happening always about the same kind of stuff? Is it always food? Is it always bedtime? Is it always school? Is it always clothes, what they're going to wear that day? Is it the activity they don't want to go to? Is it I'm fighting with my siblings to kind of take control of all of the toys, and it's always about the toys. It's always about the TV. Is it always at a certain time of day? It's always after school. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's always after school. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they coming home from school? Is it too much to give them tasks to do for the first 30 minutes? Do they need a minute to decompress, to go be alone, to go run around the backyard, to watch a show for 30 minutes, to just settle down before you start bringing them things they need to do, right? So being able to kind of step back and really look to see if there's any kinds of themes can help you be more proactive and prevent the control battle before it even starts. Any ways that you can give them appropriate control. Can we, yeah, so if it's, about they telling the parent what shoes that they want to wear each day, if they're trying to tell you, you need to wear this, be like, okay, buddy, you don't get to control what I wear today, but you can pick out your own shoes, right? This is your control, kind of redirecting them toward what is controllable. Or maybe for you, sure, they can pick your shoes out, but you give them the 2 choices that do match your outfit, right? So they don't pick something random. But what are ways that you can start to give them control, especially if you have teenagers, okay? Because they're moving toward adulthood. And so you've got to continue to lessen that kind of hold on them. So those are ways that you can start to really think about, is the control battle you continue to have with your child, is it something you actually could give them a little bit of control over, and kind of let go of that a little bit, and let them start to manage that while you're still involved. Remember to try to work on things together, right? To be on the same team with your child. Don't let the control battle constantly put you into the adversarial role with your child, right? If you realize like, gosh, we're butting heads all the time, then you're an adversary with them right now, right? And so how can you move around to say, hey, we're on the same team, we're working on this stuff together, what we want to have happen and what you're pushing back against, we're all working toward this, right? Or if it's, they're pushing you away, I don't know, in ways that are more emotional, or really digging in about things that are kind of at a deeper level. How can you rework the way you're approaching them? How can you rework what you're asking them to do? Are you asking too much of them? Do we need to ask a little bit less until they can be more successful and the control battles go away before we start to ask more of them? So look at ways that you can really be on the same page as your child instead of it always being a battle and fighting against one another. Your child might need more predictability, more structure, more routine, especially if, when we feel out of control, we need something to manage us. I'm kind of a type A, type B mix of a person. And when I'm stressed and feel out of control, I go hyper type A. I have to organize, I have to control, I've got to get everything settled and on a schedule. And, I would rather be a little bit more free with my time. But when I'm feeling stressed out, when I'm feeling out of control, I go that direction. So maybe your child needs more structure. They need more predictability to even keep them from feeling insecure and fearful to where those control battles start to come up. So how can you make things really predictable, structured? This could also help if you've got a child that's parentified, if they're trying to control their siblings' schedule or trying to control what's happening with them. Can you make things really predictable and structured, right? So, hey, you don't have to worry about what they're going to eat for dinner tonight. I've got it. Let's make the menu. Let's look at this menu together, and you can see the structure around that. Or, toys and playtime, if they're trying to control how their sibling is spending their time. Hey, they've got playtime for 30 more minutes and then they're going to get to go do something else. Let's give them some space for a little bit. And you and I come over here and do something else. And then we'll come back and we'll redirect the kids to do something else, right? So if you're kind of seeing them, doing that, or just ways that they might need more predictability, more structure, in their own schedule or around them to bring that control down. Okay, look for ways to give them voice. As I said earlier, children are in control if they can't use their words, if they can't be open, they can't be honest. Sometimes it's not just that they don't want to say it to you, but they don't even know how to figure out in their mind what they want or need because they weren't really raised in an environment where they were able to think through that. And so when you say, what do you need? What can I help you with? And they're just like, I don't know. Like they're at a loss for words. It's not always because they don't want to tell you. They just might legitimately not know how to answer that question. They don't know what their emotions are and what to do when they feel those emotions. They don't know what to do to meet a need because they don't know how to accomplish that. So trying to give them voice, hey, you're controlling the situation. I see that you're doing some stuff here. You're trying to take over a little bit. What is it that you really want? What do you really need? How can I help you? How can we get what you really want or need? In that well, the first several times you ask them, give them answers, prompt them. Could it be this? I wonder if you're feeling this way. I wonder if this would help you instead. You don't like what I've made for dinner and you're getting really upset about that. And this is turning into something. I wonder if do you want something else to eat? Can I get you stuff to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Can I do something else to kind of get at what you really want or need in this moment? So helping them learn to vocalize that and trusting that when they do, you will help them. You will try to meet that need. You might not always be able to meet that need, but that's where the say yes, no, more than no can come in. How can you say yes to your child? If you are always getting an immediate no to everything you're asking your child and it's starting a control battle, take a moment to reflect. When your child is asking you for things, do you give them an immediate no all the time, right? It's very easy as a parent. We're busy, we're stressed, we got other things on our mind. Hey, mom, can we do this? Hey, can we do this? No, 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 we can't do it. No, we can't do that right now. No, we can't. Even if in your mind you're like, we can't do that right this second, right? I'm cooking dinner. No, we can't do it right this second, but they could do it later. But instead, we're in the moment of cooking dinner, and so we just say no, right? When maybe the answer is really, hey, yes, buddy, we can do that after dinner. Remind me when dinner is over. Or yes, whenever I'm done with this thing on the stove, I will come and help you with that. Yes, I will help you. But I need to finish this first. Remind me if I don't remember, right? So how can you change, even when you have to say no, how can you maybe change that no to a yes, but yes, later, yes, soon, yes, again. Be reflective, right? If they're always saying no to you, is it because you're always saying no to them? How can you say yes more, right? And that is also going to build your attachment and build the trust that you're trying to get with them, where if they can trust you and if they are in a better place of an emotional connection with you, they aren't going to need to fight you all the time. They aren't going to need to always seek control if they feel rested and connected and trusting in their relationship with you. So that's just another strategy as well, to give them voice, but also to connect with them. Talk it out loud. This kind of goes with a little bit with the what do you want or need. If they don't know how to answer that, or you can kind of give them what you think might be going on right inside them. Give them those words. Hey, I wonder if you're the child's trying to control the way you're driving somewhere, right? You're going to school and they're like, no, don't go this way. You need to go this way, and just trying to control that, right? They say, hey, I wonder if you're feeling afraid that I forgot how to get to school today. I wonder if you're you're worried that I forgot something and that's why you're trying to do what you're doing right now. I wonder, are you feeling that way? And say, hey, I've got this. I can handle it. I can get us to school. I remember. I know how to do that. So kind of verbalizing that out loud. I see that you're really trying to be in control today. I wonder if you're worried that I can't handle this, that I can't take it over. That must be really exhausting for you to be worried about that all the time. I can do it. Mom can do it. Dad can do it. So giving that reassurance by talking it out loud. Pick your battles, kind of the story I told earlier. Don't die on hills. I mean, I would say kind of period, but especially don't die on hills you can't win, right? So really be aware of the battles you're taking on. Can you actually have mastery over them? If you don't like the kids that your child's hanging out with at school, right? Maybe they're kind of running with some kids you wouldn't like them to be. They're kind of having some bad influences or getting some attitudes. That's what's going on. You can talk with them about that. What you do have control over is talking with them about your concerns, addressing that, redirecting them to other friendships, offering to get them involved in other activities to make new friends. What you don't have control over is who they actually talk to at school, right? They can tell you all day long, oh yeah, mom, I'm not going to hang out with them. And then they're going to go to school and they're going to do what they're going to do. right? You're not there with them. You can't shadow them all day long. But what you do have control over is having those conversations, redirecting them, explaining why you're concerned, giving them opportunities to make other and different friendships. But don't try to pick a battle on you can't speak to that person ever again. Okay. Maybe it's dangerous or a worrisome enough situation where you have to draw some harder boundaries, but also recognizing your kid can text behind your back, they can talk to people behind your back, they still can find a way. Right? So finding where are the battles that you can take up, what do you have control over, what do you not, and how do you navigate that with your child, but being aware of the battles that you're picking. And again, looking for ways to give appropriate control. If it's not really a safety issue, maybe it's something you can let up for a little bit on. Maybe it's something you can give in. Maybe it's something you can give them some control over, so that we can kind of get through this, continue to build trust, and those control battles start to come down because of the relationship that's being built. So being aware of the battles you're trying to pick as the parent, what you're engaging into, and don't die on hills. Okay, kind of wrapping up here. So connection and playful engagement here. As I said earlier, that's the best way for these control battles to start to come down is really going to be building trust and deepening that attachment and connection with a child. So don't allow them to distract you away with these control battles, right? Sometimes kids are going to dig their heels in because it gets you distracted, right? It's effective in getting your attention onto whatever fight they're picking and off of what they really don't want you looking at, really don't want you digging into. Hey, you're getting too close over here, so I'm going to pick this battle, get this behavior going, because it's going to distract you away from that. Don't fall for it, okay? If you can. So looking for ways to stay connected, to not be that adversary. How can you build trust and attachment outside of all the control battles that are going on? How can you help your child feel more loved and feel more valued? Will make them less likely to pick some of those battles with you. Be a safe place for them, establishing that trust above all else, and kind of whatever's going on. Even with the control, especially if you're seeing some themes around certain things, if you've got a lot of parentification going on, if it's a lot of, immediately saying no, how do you kind of step aside from that, create a space for them to talk through what's going on behind that behavior and going on behind that control battle. Playful engagement is a great way to diffuse, right? So your child, give some attitude, give some pushback, starts a control battle with you. If you've watched any of T-Bear, you've probably heard Dr. Purvis use that, hey, are you asking or telling, right? She always says it in that sing-songy kind of playful voice when a child demands something of her. Say, whoa, are you asking or are you telling? Try to get them to, hey, can we change the way that we're approaching to not just grab control. I saw this video on Instagram this week of one of the gentle parent accounts that I follow, and they were acting this out, of course, but I thought it was a really, really great strategy that her child was probably like 10, 11 years old. The mom said, hey, I need you to go clear your plates off the table. And the child goes, no. And the mom goes, whoa, I just heard the weirdest noise. Did you hear that? That sound, it was so weird. Oh, it was so weird. Did you hear it? And she's kind of tickling the daughter, like, where did that sound come from? And she goes, let me see if I can hear it again. Let me see if I can hear that noise again. Hey, can you go clean up your dishes from the table? And the little girl kind of, again, they're acting it out, but she kind of more playfully was like, no. And the mom goes, oh, there's that noise, that no word. That's the noise that I heard. And she just kept it so playful and, again, acting it out, right? So in reality, does it always go that easy? Probably not. But I love that example and being able to just when your child gives that pushback response to whatever you're asking them to do, especially when it's something that's so simple, right? Just so easy, just go do it. Don't say no and just go do it. To be like, whoa, what was that? What? Did you just say no? Is that what you said? what? Yeah, I should have heard a yes, and just trying to diffuse it as best you can. Could get them staying more playful, get them out of, right, when we're laughing and when we're smiling, we're not feeling necessarily anger and frustration and pushback, and we're not feeling these other ways. So if we can keep our kids in that playful state at our initiation, then it's going to diffuse a lot. It's going to stop a lot in its tracks, or even prevent that control battle from getting taken up. And when you're able to be playful, go, oh, okay, oh my gosh, that was so silly. Okay, why don't you go get your dishes from the table now? Right. And they might be more willing to go do it. So it's a strategy to try. How can you keep things playful? Okay, wanting to get into food, sleep, and a couple of other more specific things where we often see these issues come up. So one of the biggest reasons, one of the reasons why we see food, sleep, toilet as some of the most common places where control battles happen. This is because I said this earlier. It is an area that they have 100% control over, and you have 0 control over. You cannot force food down their bellies. You cannot actually make them go to sleep, right? You cannot make them go to the bathroom or stop them from going to the bathroom. Their bodies have 100% control. So you, in these control battles, are just dancing around the outside of the line where you have no control. So my encouragement is to try to not make battles happen in any of these areas as best as you're able to. With food, so often, so often, parents get so stressed about this, right? My kid is not getting enough nutrition. Have toddlers, they're picky eaters. I'm in that whole world. Every parent is worried about the nutrition going into their child's body. They are not getting enough vitamins. They're not getting enough of the green stuff. They are eating bread and chicken nuggets all the time. This is not good, or they're not eating enough. We get so worried. In most cases, when we're not talking about actual disordered eating, okay, so if your child is encountering issues with an eating disorder, this is not what I'm talking about. That is a different subject that needs to be handled in very different ways, okay? But with children that are not engaging in disordered eating, they're being picky, they're pulling control battles over this, right? They're just digging in their heels about it because they can, right? It's 100% control. We want to adjust our goals. Okay, so the goal is calories in their bodies. They need food, they need energy, right? They need something in their bodies, even if it's not the most nutritious, even if it's the same thing every day, even if you are making food they will never eat. Okay, the goal ultimately is calories. And so how can you maneuver around that? So hear me in this. This is not meant to just be permissive parenting. Fine, they just get to eat whatever they eat and I can't do anything about it. No, there are things that you have control in, right? You do have control over what you provide them to eat. You have full control over that as the adult. They can eat what they eat at school, but when they're away from your home. But in your home, you're providing meals, you're going to the store, you're doing it. Invite them in. How can you share control with them? With food prep, meal planning, grocery shopping, giving them choices of things to pick out, putting them in front of the vegetable counter at the store and go, oh my gosh, there's so many vegetables. Which one should we choose to eat this week? Which one do you want? Whatever they pick, figure out a way to make it. Giving them choices, getting them involved in this can help. Put food on the table in front of them. Say, this is what you have to eat tonight, sweetheart. I love you. And then don't say anything else about it. You can maybe give a few, hey, do you want to take a bite? Hey, can you eat some of that? But the more that you're hovering over them and they sense you hovering, they sense you staring at them, watching every bite of food that goes into their mouth, or every time they go to their plate, what are they eating? Are they just eating the bread? Or are they eating other things, right? That is going to cause them to feel out of control and is more likely to cause the control battle than if you kind of leave them alone, okay? Try it for a week. Put the food on the table, give them one food that you know they will eat, right? So we get calories in bodies. Give them something they will eat, put it down on the table, say, this is what we're eating for dinner tonight. Yay! And then move move on. Talk about other things at the dinner table. At the end of the dinner, if they haven't eaten anything, go, okay, wow, you didn't eat anything. Are you sure you don't, like, do you want to eat a bite? Do you want some of this? You can always have alternative meals that they're able either to make themselves or would be very easy for you to make if they're too young. So usually that's like a peanut butter and jelly, right? We get some good nutrition, we get some protein in there. We get some vitamins with the jelly. We get some carbs with that bread. Is that, what are some other really simple foods that they can make for themselves so that you're not making two completely different meals, right? You're still in control of that. But they're getting some calories in their body and it's something that they have control over. Food hoarding, often the advice is if you've got a kid that's stealing food, they're hovering it away, please do not lock food up, okay? That is going to cause more panic, especially if they have food insecurities. It's going to cause the fear and anxiety to tick up and can make those control battles come up, okay? So we are trying to take fear down, anxiety down. So if that means you need to buy less food, right, then because they just eat through it all, or they're going to eat whatever's in the pantry, okay, then they eat whatever's in the pantry and then you go grocery shopping at the end of the week and that's when they get more stuff. But you'll still provide meals for them, right? But they eat through all the snacks. This is also life lesson building, right? We can't just eat all of our food in the first day and have nothing to eat for 6 more days. So you're helping them kind of learn how to ration that out, how to only eat a little bit at a time. If they are hoarding it away into their room, I think I said this, so like leaving a basket of healthy snacks on the counter, you can always eat these. These are always available for you. Maybe you do portions. This is what I put there in the morning. You guys can eat it whenever. You put it there after school. These are your snacks for the day. They're always here for you to come and grab, even if it spoils their dinner, right? The goal is calories. So if they get some calories through eating an apple and some peanut butter and some crackers or a granola bar or something, and then they eat less dinner that they weren't going to eat anyway, that's okay. We got calories in their body. Okay, so working around what the needs of your children are. As trust and security grows, these food issues are going to come down. Okay, they're not going to always eat this way. They're not going to always eat snacks all the time. Right, that's your fear and your insecurity that's coming up in you when you're afraid of that. Right, these issues are going to come down when we're dealing with all the other stuff. Okay. Picky eaters, again, kind of focusing on that safe food, something that they will eat, that they'll put in their body. Always introduce more food. Put a little bit of anything that you're making for dinner that night on their plate. If they don't touch it, they don't touch it. If you put just a little bit of it, it's okay if the food is wasted. If they don't touch it, scoop it back in to eat with your own meal for leftovers the next night. Doing small portions of that is going to take down your fear, right, of that food being wasted. With vegetables with my kids, I do frozen veggies. The whole bag costs $1. I give them, this much. And if they do eat the peas that night, great. If they don't, I didn't waste a lot of food. Okay. Or I can scoop it back in and serve them to them the next day. So for picky eaters, always continuing to introduce new foods to them, always continuing. You can encourage that just take one bite. Don't make it a hill you end up dying on, but it's okay to encourage that. Try to get them to, hey, you can get up from the table when you've had one bite of, pick one thing on the plate that's the most nutritious, that you think they need the most, something that's the most green, right? Hey, you can have one bite of that and then you can go play, all right? And then leave the plate on the table maybe. My picky eater, he seems really picky, but then he comes back later and he usually eats a lot of food like an hour later. So it's just kind of what we're doing. I don't know if it's the best strategy, but it's working because he continues to eat. He just only wants to eat so much in the moment and won't eat anymore. And I can't make him eat anymore in the moment, but he will come back on his own and eat that food. So that could be another strategy for your kiddo. They're like, no, I don't want to eat this. Okay, well, it's going to be here on the table at any point tonight. I won't put it away until you go to bed. So if you want to come back and eat some, go for it. The family that I mentioned earlier that was like forcing food, when I was there for a visit with them, they had put the child at a table away behind us and had given them a snack. And then I was talking with the parents over kind of on the other side of the room. And I remember hearing all of a sudden the mom go, whoa, she ate all the food. And I was like, yeah, because you weren't hovering, you weren't forcing her to, you let her be. There wasn't a schedule. She didn't have to eat dinner in a 30-minute window. It was just there and she ate all the food when they left her alone. Okay, so something to try, see if it works for your kid. So similar things with sleep, choices, compromises. If you can build in routines and rituals to kind of make that sleep bedtime routine a little bit more fun, a little more engaged with them. Hey, we need to do these things before you go to bed. Which one do you want to do first? Sorry, I know I'm kind of rushing here through the end part, but a lot of what I've already talked about today in the presentation is still going to apply with sleep. We look for some ways to do some natural consequences there, right? If your child's tired, they're tired, right? You can do everything you can. You can get them in their room. They've got no screens, nothing to really distract them. Maybe they can read some books, whatever, that's fine. Ultimately, you can't make them go to sleep. And so you've got to let them be. You can set up everything that you have control over. You can get them into their room at an appropriate time. And then if they stay up for a couple of hours because their mind is racing or because they're refusing to go to sleep in their own right, and that's what they do, right? The natural consequence is we still get up at the same time the next day and we got to go throughout our day. And then we're going to go to bed. Some other natural consequences can be, hey, if you're pushing and you're not going to bed when I tell you to, you're going to bed 15 minutes late, then tomorrow you have to go to bed 15 minutes early. We're going to start the routine a little bit early. If you do have a kid that's just constantly delaying, especially if they're younger and they can't really tell time, you can start getting them ready for bed 30 minutes earlier than you normally would, because you know that 30-minute extra time is just going to get wasted. But it still gets them into their bed by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever it is. Some different strategies and ways that you can kind of work around that. I'm happy to set up a call with you and talk through that specifically. Ways to work in choices, work in compromises. Maybe they need to get a new fun stuffed animal at the store, or a new set of pajamas that they get to pick out to make it more exciting. Make them feel like it's their idea, right, to get to go to bed. New toothbrush. Something to kind of help with that. Building in some routines, some structure, some rituals can maybe help in that way. A little bit with toilet issues. And then the defiance and aggression, I'll let you can kind of see that, take a picture of that if you want to. It speaks to a lot of what I've already talked about in the presentation today. But toilet issues, we want to rule out any medical issues first, right? Making sure there isn't actually something going on physiologically with their body that's causing them to soil themselves, or to withhold or stop themselves from going. Is there constipation going on? Is there diarrhea happening because of food issues? Talk with your pediatrician, figure out if there's something medical going on. The other thing that can be going on, right, is just a control issue, right? This is something they have complete control over, either making themselves go or not letting themselves go, right? And to release. This can be rooted in anxiety and shame or fear. Especially if there's been a big transition that's happened, if they switch schools, has something happened that's kind of made them feel really out of control. So this is something they're going to kind of take back control over. I put the DSM-5-TR, so this is the diagnostic manual that therapists use for mental health conditions. I have that listed because encopresis and enuresis are diagnosable conditions. And this is when children are inappropriately either withholding or releasing, encopresis with balance, and enuresis with urination. So these are diagnosable, right? So I say that to kind of normalize some of it, or at least kind of acknowledge that there are other people that can have some issues in this area. With wetting the bed at night, I've seen that up to like 8 years old, this is really common because their body physiologically can't shut it down at night. So if your child's still under 8 wetting the bed at night, this isn't really a problem yet. It is a problem, it causes problems, but it's not a big enough issue to really be going to some bigger extremes to handle. Really making sure that with toilet issues, that you're staying away from punishments, okay? Because that can be adding to shame and anxiety. And if that is at the root of what's going on with their toileting issues, then it is only going to make it worse and not better, right? Because you cannot control this. So any amount of punishments doesn't probably matter. And especially if you've been doing punishments for a while and it's not working, it's not going to work. So we need to come up with a new strategy. Okay, want to be mindful of our time. So I'm going to jump over here to the resources. These are my 3 favorite books for handling difficult behaviors, at least right now. There's other books that are really wonderful as well. But right now, these are some of my 3 favorite. They hit at a variety of topics, especially that A to Z of therapeutic parenting. If you've got a kid that's got lots of issues and lots of struggles, this is a great one to invest in. It's basically like a dictionary or an encyclopedia. You look up control issues, you look up defiance, you look up, whatever it is you're going on with your child, and they give you, this is why this might be happening, here's what you can do. It's really, really great. Connected Parent obviously is the companion book to The Connected Child. It's one I really like, especially for the practical side of this. Lisa Qualls is an adoptive mom, and she wrote alongside the work of Karen Purvis to give it and make it really practical. Okay, so wrapping up here, there's my name and my email. I am happy to schedule a call with you to talk over anything that you have going on with your child in this area and to talk over strategies. We can do kind of a 1 or 2 off phone call with me, or we also have our coaching program where that gives you 4 weeks of meeting with a coach to tackle some of these issues that you might be experiencing with your child and you don't know how to put some of these strategies that we've talked about today into play with your kid. And let's set up coaching for you guys. We have a grant right now that is providing coaching at no cost. So this is a great time to jump on that. Otherwise, there is a cost associated with it. My goal is to keep that no cost. All right, please reach out with any questions that you have. Yes, thank you so much for joining. If you're an adoptive parent and need a certificate that you attended today, please email me. Staff, any staff that are on the call, I will send you a certificate. I've got the registration, but if you are a parent that needs that, especially like foster parent or stuff, let me know and I can give you a certificate. So, all right, thank you so much.